Hey guys, TrepChains here with a build guide for the solo Rend Barbarian that I've been running in Season 19. Overall, what I'm trying to do is pull groups of mobs together and whirlwind them, which through my Ambo's Pride is applying my Rend to try and kill them, I guess. Importantly, depending on the element you're running, it depends on your manual rend. So I will be running physical here, but there are other versions like lightning and fire. So I'm running physical. So during my physical cycle, if I've got my group together, I'll be manually hitting my rend during that period to try and maximize the damage. The area damage that you have will only apply on manual hits of rend, not on any rend applied by Ambo's Pride. To group the mobs together, I'm using a combination of Ancient Spear Rage Flip to pull individual mobs and Ground Stomp Wrenching Smash. Ground Stomp Wrenching Smash is also important to keep up your survivability via Band of Might. So you need to be hitting that at least every 8 seconds to try and keep up your Band of Might. A lot of your other survivability comes from Wrath of the Berserker, which you have all runes for via your Mortix braces. So you need to keep Wrath of the Berserker up pretty much the entire time. So you need to have enough cooldown in the build to really allow that, and make sure you're hitting things with your Whirlwind and your Ancient Spear to help proc your Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac to also help keep that Wrath of the Berserker cooldown up. One of the other skills of note there on my bar is Battle Rage, and that's just providing buffs for my case in terms primarily of damage, but in some cases damage and healing depending on the rune selected. But that's got a nice long time period, so you don't have to hit that one very often. So for the Rift Guardian, the gameplay doesn't change too much. If you've got an ads boss, you can use them to pull them in and help with the area damage, but single target, just keep whirlwinding for the most part, applying your rend. During your elemental, physical in my case, spam your manual rend. Ground stomp occasionally, keep your Band of Might up. Make sure you keep your Wrath of the Berserker up. Make sure you've got Battle Rage up. Pretty basic stuff. I'm running Bane of the Stricken to increase the damage with all my hits, so I do more damage later on. Also, I'm running Ruthless Passive, which gives me extra damage below 30% health, which helps out a lot to take down the Rift Guardian. Gear and build check. So, running a 6-piece Wrath of the Wastes Rend build here. We're about 9 weeks into season, so a fair way through season. So my gear, I'm going to say, is quite good in my opinion. So yeah, running through it now. So Wrath of the Waste, we're running that because 2-piece set increases damage per second of rend by 500% and increasing its duration. And then during Whirlwind and 3 seconds afterwards, we're gaining damage reduction. So you see Whirlwind is another major skill I'm using, not really doing damage, but is providing me some survivability and buffs. And 6-piece, most importantly, rend damage is increased by 10,000%. So this is really about a rend build. Okay, so what I'm using. Okay, helm. This is a nice primal helm here, correctly statted. Strength, vitality, critical hit chance. I have 10 augments on this build, so, and they are, all of those 10 are 150s. So I've augmented all my armor and my weapons, just not my jewelry. So 150 augments give me 750 strength per piece. So that's the correct stats for that helm. And secondaries, it's useful to have a secondary resistance, and the golden health pickup's actually a bit handy as well. Okay, shoulders, best piece of my build. Resist all, area damage, cooldown, rend damage, and then the strength only added there from the augment. So that's pretty much what you'd want. These are pretty GG shoulders. Gloves. So on my gloves, I'm wearing strength, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and cooldown. I find the extra cooldowns really handy for Wrath of the Berserker. Some people would prefer area damage. Ideally, we're lucky enough to get quads. You could run critical hit damage, critical hit chance, cooldown, and area damage. But really, whether cooldown or area damage is better depends on your individual play style I'm preferring the cooldown right now. Waist chest armor. So this is good stats. They're just a little low. Strength, resist all, and rend damage increase. So keep in mind where I'm gearing. I'm only gearing where there is a plus rend damage increase. If there's plus whirlwind, I don't care. Whirlwind's not really doing my damage. It's rend that's doing my damage. Okay. Pants. These are pretty good pants in my opinion. Strength, vitality, resist all on those. Unfortunately, there my secondaries aren't very helpful, but that's life. Okay, my boots here. Strength, vitality, resist all, regen. I think they're pretty good rolls. I do have a lot of overall armor, over 40,000 armor on my build already. So I actually like having the regen now instead of a little bit of extra armor, but that having armor would be an extra possibility there if you didn't want the regen. Hey, that's my 6-piece waist. Moving on to my Istvan set. So running Istvans here. Rend is mainly based off your main hand damage, so that's important to remember if you're running a set like this. You want the one with the highest damage number, really, to end up in your, well, the left you see here, but technically your right hand. So, these rolls are pretty reasonable, I think. 10% damage, area damage are definitely things you want on your main hand with a reasonable damage range. And then the other stat could be cooldown. It could be something like strength. Up to you. As I guess I've already suggested, I like to have that little bit of extra cooldown in the build, keeping me a little bit safer with cooldown for my Wrath of the Berserker. Offhand, so you can be a little bit more lenient with this. You can see here I do not have a plus 10% damage roll because my rend damage, my main damage is based off my main hand. So on my offhand, I've got a strength roll there. I've got area damage, a nice 24% area damage roll, and a cooldown roll for that cooldown so I can keep up my buffs. Okay, supporting legendaries now. Running Lamentation on the belt, so Rend can stack up to 2 times on an enemy and the damage of Rend is increased by mining's 147, it goes up to 150, the closest to 150 the better. I haven't found a decent ancient with 150 yet, so that's why I'm running this 147. So stats on this, you definitely want strength, you definitely want resist all, and then it's survivability. So some vitality would be preferred. Mine obviously doesn't have it, and a life roll, which I do have there, although low, is a good thing to have. So that's handy. Braces, Mortix braces. So this is giving you every rune of Wrath of the Berserker, which is really handy. So stats on there, physical damage, perfect. Critical hit chance, perfect. Definitely want strength on there, and then you want survivability. So whether you go with vitality and a secondary resist as I have, or an all resistance roll would probably be preferred by most people on those braces. Okay, supporting jewelry now. So these are my non-augmented pieces. So my jewelry isn't quite as good as such. So my flavor of time here is quite a nice flavor of time, but it's not ancient. So I can't augment it. If this was ancient, I would have augmented it. So stats I run on here, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, area damage, and cooldown. The flavor of times always roll with cooldown. It would be good to have a elemental there, and there are a few different elements being run on this build. Physical and lightning and maybe even fire, some people are talking about. I'm running a physical version. So I've got physical, my braces, obviously you want whatever element you're running, and an element roll on your amulet would be nice if you can get one. But this is just the best amulet I seem to have, I believe, for the build, so that's why I'm running it. Convention of elements, so this is the right stats, obviously not ancient either, so can't be augmented. So critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and area damage you want on there, and a secondary of 200% is really a high secondary is important here for your damage boost. So I would say at least 190 plus if you possibly can. And finally, my Bandamite. So my Bandamite is ancient, but it's just not good enough, I don't believe, to be augmented. So that's why it's not augmented. So on here, the stats are okay. Importantly, I have the 80% max on the damage reduction on the orange stat. And then I've got critical hit chance, critical hit damage, which you want. And then you'd ideally want another damage stat. So I have strength on there, but things you could have or things that would help would be a cooldown there. Might allow you to change a cooldown somewhere else, or an area damage on that, which as you can see I don't have, and my crit damage there is particularly on the low side. Okay, so I think that's the gear pieces. Cube. So in my cube, running Ambo's Pride, this is critical to the build. So attacking with Whirlwind applies Rend. So while Whirlwind isn't doing the damage for me, Whirlwind is applying my Rend and doing damage through Rend. And it also makes all the damage of Rend be dealt over 1 second. So it like really condenses that damage. So that's really important to be running Ambo's Pride. Stone Gauntlets, this is for survivability. So importantly with Stone Gauntlets, you do not want your Wrath of the Berserker to go down. So Wrath of the Berserker is what's keeping you from being stoned in Stone Gauntlets. So keep that in mind. I don't think I got stoned in that rift, which is kind of nice. I'm getting a little bit better. Obviously, I did die when I let some buffs drop. But it's a bit of practice, just making sure, and one of the reasons you need to make sure you've got enough cooldown to keep this Wrath of the Berserker up, because if not, while they're great protection normally, you will get stoned, and that's going to stuff you up. And Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, this is to help your cooldowns. So, resource spending attack. Whirlwind is a resource spending attack, so this is just helping you with your cooldowns. Obviously, you've got other things there, like your Ancient Spear will reduce it as well, but Obsidian Ring, critical there for keeping up your cooldowns. Okay, normal gems, running cooldown in my helm, resist all in my armor pieces, and critical hit damage in my weapons. Legendary gems, running Bane of the Stricken in my amulet. Now, if you are fishing for angels, and a lot of the highest runs on this build are fishing for that 500 kill bonus in Season 19 angels, you probably wouldn't be wearing a Stricken. You might wear something like a powerful instead here, but I am, as you've just seen, still expecting to kill the Rift Guardian, so on that basis I'm running a Stricken there, and it is at rank 150 because I have done enough 150s this season to have a bunch of 150 gems. Bane of the Trapped here, pretty critical in most DPS builds, so everything that's near me anyway is being control impaired because we've got that movement reduction there on the secondary of the Bane of the Trapped, and it's all increasing the damage against it. Obviously it doesn't work on something like Juggernaut, but it's also one of the reasons if you're running this and you see a Juggernaut, it's might not be going down as quickly. It's probably because your Bane of the Trapped damage isn't kicking in. And Taeguk, so this is increased damage based on spending resource on a channel skill. So this is a game where Whirlwind is a channeled skill, so we're channeling Whirlwind, is coming in to buff the damage of Rend, because the damage is after you've spent the resource on the channeled skill. So you're continuously spending on Whirlwind, and then you're hitting Rend, so the Rend also has that damage boost. It's also giving you some armor as well, which is nice for survivability. Okay. Quick look at my Paragon now. So I am running all points here in utility. As long as you're over 800 Paragon, that shouldn't be a problem. All points in defense as well. All points in offense. And in core, I'm running all points in max fury, all points in movement speed. I do have 400 points into vitality for an extra 2000 vitality, and I'm running around 676,000 life in my health globe there. And then the rest of my points are into strength for that damage and armor boost. Having a quick look at my skill screen now. Running Whirlwind Wind Shear. So this means that when I am whirlwinding, I am moving at my normal run speed. It still feels quite slow, not having something like charge on the build, but that at least keeps it a little bit better. Ancient Spear, Rage Flip. So this is basically how I'm helping pull the mobs together. So I keep trying to pull them along as I'm moving around. Yeah, it's kind of Z-Barb style, so I like it. Rage Flip you want because it's pretty much the biggest pull you can manage. Wrath of the Berserker, Striding Giant. Keeping in mind, from your braces, you are getting all of these lovely runes, so I just have Striding Giant on just because, but it doesn't really matter what you pick there. Rend Bloodlust. So, as I say, there's a few runes people are running on Rend. I'm personally running the physical rune Bloodlust, which is giving me healing when I'm using my Rend, which is helping me stay alive. Other runes you might see include Bloodbath, which is damage, Lacerate, Lightning, considered more damage, and some people are talking about using Rend for that increased radius. So there are other options here. Just make sure whatever your elemental is matches here. One point to keep in mind here, because I've got my Bloodlust here healing me, with my Battle Rage, I'm going for pure damage there as into the fray. So, yeah, I'm getting my general Battle Rage damage, but then I'm going for more damage here with Into the Fray. Some people who are running more of a damage rune on Rend will be running Swords to Plowshares, which is healing there on the Battle Rage. So I'm not doing that one because I've got my healing through the Bloodlust rune that I'm running there. And finally, Ground Stomp Wrenching Smash. So this helps pull the mobs tighter, which helps you obviously whirlwind them while applying Rend while whirlwinding, which is handy, and also pulling them tighter helps with your area damage. So for this solo build, you should definitely be running area damage, and you've seen that on a lot of my stats on my gear. Area damage is only proccing as you manually apply Rend, so you would have heard me talk about my physical cycle since I'm running physical Rend, and during that you want to be manually hitting your Bloodlust, because the Rend that is applied via whirlwinding via Ambo's Pride does not do area damage. Only the Rend when you're physically hitting Rend will proc the area damage. So Ground Stomp helps you pull stuff together, hopefully getting more area damage. Okay, so passives. Tunable Kathos, reducing the cooldown of my Wrath of the Berserker by 30 seconds. As I said, critical to keep that up. Lots of survivability and you don't want to be stoned. Berserker Rage, extra damage while near max fury, pretty important. Brawler, so you can see most of the time we are whirlwinding and applying Rend. We are doing it in a pack. So this is increasing my damage during that. More damage, 20%, great. And Ruthless, extra damage at the end, which is really handy if you are fighting that Rift Guardian. You see there at the end my Stricken's building up, but also Ruthless kicks in once it's below 30% health. And potentially is the only reason I took that Rift Guardian down with about 7 or 8 seconds to spare. So that sums up my Rend Solo Barbarian build. Thank you very much for watching, and GG!